What if I told you the solution to all our money problems is right here? Just turn on the printing press and let it run. Want a new car? Print some cash. Need to pay off student loans? Print some more. Sounds perfect, right? So why don't governments just print more money to solve poverty and pay off all their debts? The answer is a bit more complicated than you might think, and it involves a journey through history, some basic economics, and a few spectacular failures that changed the world. Let's start with what money actually is. At its core, money isn't just paper. It's a system of trust. It's a promise. When you hold a $20 bill, you're not holding something that's intrinsically worth $20. You reholding a piece of paper that you trust you can exchange for goods and services of that value. The restaurant owner trusts it, the grocery store trusts it, and the gas station trusts it. This shared belief is what gives money its power. The value of money is tied to the total value of all the goods and services a country produces, its gross domestic product, or GDP. Think of it like a giant pizza. The entire economy is the pizza, and all the money in circulation are the slices. If you have 8 slices for an 8-slice pizza, each slice represents a fair portion. But what happens if you start cutting those slices in half, creating 16 slices for the same pizza? Each slice is now smaller, worth less. Printing more money without producing more goods and services is exactly like that. You have more pieces of paper, but each one buys you less. This phenomenon has a name you've definitely heard of: inflation. A little bit of inflation is actually good for an economy. Most central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, aim for about 2% inflation per year. This encourages people to spend and invest their money rather than hoarding it under a mattress, because they know it will be worth slightly less in the future. It keeps the economic engine running smoothly. But when a government gives in to the temptation of the printing press, things can spiral out of control into what's called hyperinflation. And history is filled with terrifying examples. Let's travel back to the early 1920s, to the Weimar Republic in Germany. After World War I, Germany was saddled with massive war reparations debts they had to pay to the victorious countries. The German government, unable to raise the money through taxes or production, decided to fire up the printing presses. At first, it seemed to work. They could pay their bills, but the consequences were catastrophic. In 1921, $1 was worth about 60 German marks. By November 1923, $1 was worth 4.2 trillion marks. Trillion. Prices were doubling every few days. People would get their wages and rush to the stores immediately because their money would be worthless by the next day. A loaf of bread that cost 250 marks in January 1923 cost 200 billion marks by November. People were using wheelbarrows to carry cash for simple groceries. They even burned stacks of money for heat because it was cheaper than buying firewood. The entire society's trust in their currency and their government collapsed. This economic chaos created a breeding ground for extremism, contributing to the rise of political figures who promised to restore order at any cost. We saw a more recent example in Zimbabwe in the late 2000s. The government, facing economic sanctions and declining production, started printing money at an astonishing rate. By 2008, inflation reached an estimated 89.7 sextillion%. That's a number with 21 zeros. The government printed a $100 trillion banknote, which at its peak was barely enough to buy a bus ticket. Shops changed their prices several times a day. Eventually, the Zimbabwean dollar became so worthless that the country abandoned it entirely, and people started using foreign currencies like the US dollar and the South African rand instead. The trust was completely broken. So, if printing money leads to such disaster, what's the alternative? How do economies grow, and how do governments manage their finances? The real way to make a country richer is by increasing its productivity. This means making more stuff and providing better services. This can be achieved through technological innovation, a more educated and skilled workforce, better infrastructure like roads and internet, and creating a stable environment for businesses to thrive. When a country produces more, the total value of its economic pizza gets bigger. Then, you can carefully and slowly increase the amount of money in circulation to match that new, larger value without devaluing the currency. It's about making a bigger pizza, not just cutting it into more slices. Governments also manage their finances through taxes and borrowing. They collect taxes from citizens and businesses to pay for public services like schools, hospitals, and defense. When they need to spend more than they collect in taxes, they can borrow money by issuing bonds. A bond is essentially an IOU. People, companies, and even other countries buy these bonds, lending the government money with the promise that they'll be paid back later with interest. This is a much more stable way to finance government spending than just printing money out of thin air, because it's based on borrowing existing value, not creating new, unbacked value. However, too much debt can also be a problem, but that's a topic for another video. The core lesson here is that there are no simple shortcuts to creating wealth. Real wealth isn't about having more pieces of paper. It's about producing real value. It's about innovation, hard work, and building a productive society. The temptation to just print money is the ultimate economic siren song. It sounds beautiful and easy, but it leads directly to the rocks of economic ruin. It erodes savings, destroys trust, and can destabilize an entire society. So the next time you hear someone say, "Why don't we just print more money?" you'll know the answer. It's because the money itself isn't the wealth. It's just a claim on the wealth. And when you make too many claims on the same amount of stuff, each claim becomes worth less and less until it's worth nothing at all. History has shown us time and again that building a strong economy takes time, effort, and smart policy. Not just a bigger printing press, but no one expected this to happen. When one country tried to tie its currency to a digital asset, the results were truly unprecedented. We'll dive into that story next time. Thanks for watching. If you found this explanation helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into how our world really works. See you in the next one.